Hey, this is D-Night.
This is Carol. And
Ties.
womp womp.
And Ties at
today.
Work. And you're listening to the Pardon the Insurrection podcast, where we do not endorse the idea of a 12-hour period in which all crime is deemed legal, including murder.
Especially murder.
I mean,
we especially do not condone that.
No, we don't condone it, even though numerous Republicans recently have tried to murder their own presidential candidate. But that aside, it's been a wacky, wild week, as per the usuals, nonstop news every single goddamn day. It's driving me crazy. I don't know how many of you out there consume alcohol on a regular basis, but if you're thinking of quitting drinking anytime soon,
You're crazy.
I would suggest you hold off. Typically, I don't endorse.
Look, it's super, super bad for you. It's killing you, but so is stress.
Yeah, but it's also keeping your soul alive at this point with all of this ridiculous nonsense that's going on in the news, in the media, especially in an election
cycle. Quitting alcohol will get rid of 100% of your will to live. No,
now, the flip side of that
is not coffee.
If you don't drink alcohol, that's like one less beverage that you might accidentally spill on your laptop, as Carol once did not too long ago here, but she got a replacement, Chardonnay Carol, as we like to refer to her. That's her new name.
I don't know what that laptop just stopped working on its own. I have no idea what happened to that.
Hey, look, at least your nickname is far better than what they're calling the diddler. So you have that going for you. But in case you missed it over the course of this weekend, in one of Trump's events, he was referencing the amount of crime in the United States, even though the FBI just put out a report showing that over the course of the past 6 months, crime has drastically decreased under the Biden administration. He had another accomplishment that he continues to be lacking in terms of praise as far as the public is concerned. But at this event, Trump was saying, oh, all of this crime, blah, 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 it's terrible. There's one way to fix it. We should have a day in which he was basically endorsing the idea of the purge. And if you think that I'm being ironic there.
I heard something about 1 hour, but it's going to be really, really bad hour. Make them not do. Yeah. Okay.
Well, he started off with an entire day, and then I think he toned it down to just an hour because he realized how absurd he fucking sounded.
But you'd see, originally you saw kids walk in with calculators. They were calculating. They didn't want to go over the $950. They're standing with calculators, adding it up. You know, these are smart people. They're not so stupid, but they have to be taught. Now, if you had one really violent day, like a guy like Mike Kelly, put him in charge. Congressman Kelly, put him in charge for one day. Mike, would you say, he's right here. He's a great congressman. Would you say, Mike, that if you were in charge, you would say, oh, please, don't touch them. Don't touch them. Let them rob your store. All these stores go out of business, right? They don't pay rent. Then the city doesn't have money. It's a chain of events that's so bad. One rough hour, and I mean real rough, the word will get out and it will end immediately.
All right, so the idea that...
Kill those kids that you said were trying to take calculators. How dare they do math?
Yeah, I guess engaging in crime in which you use a calculator does show some sort of intelligence that you could probably apply to another endeavor. No, the idea Trump is basically endorsing there is that if there were a day or some period of time in which you could be violent towards criminals, that would end crime. That is the plot of The Purge. I kid you not. Now, if you haven't seen any of the Purge films, the basic premise there is that the conservative government in an alternate version of the United States has instituted a policy where one day a year for a 12-hour period, all crime is legal in the United States, including murder. And the idea behind that is that if you give people the opportunity to engage in just a free reign of terror and destruction for a short period of time over the course of the rest of the year, crime will decrease. I mean, some subplot lines of that include the fact that it's actually a ploy by the government and a few wealthy people it's a grift. Like they make billions of dollars every year selling guns and security systems and whatnot. But also there's a separate subplot of
are there any entities in this country today that make money off of selling guns and defensive equipment?
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, there are more guns in America currently than there are people. So, yeah, and considering I think like 2% of Americans legally own guns, it seems like an absurd number of guns to flood the country with. But nonetheless, there's also the subplot in these movies of the idea that the purge is just cover for the party in power to eliminate their political opponents. So, you know. Seems like the kind of idea Trump would readily endorse, and it's fucking insane. I wish the media would actually cover this with some kind of diligence. I mean, like this is
no, they still just laughed at the dictator on day one comment. They're like, ha, he's going to be a dictator. Moving on, we're talking to someone in a diner.
Right. Not to mention, again, you know, of Trump's echoing of Hitler over the course of the past few years here. Not only with the dictator on day one thing and calling immigrants animals and saying they're poisoning the blood of our country, and just last week blaming the quote unquote Jews for his election loss in 2020. There's also the Night of Shattered Glass, if you might be familiar with that from your American, or rather your World War II history. In which, Hitler did all of this encouragement of violence against the Jewish community and businesses and such, and that erupted into a night of violence. I mean, it's the parallels are getting out of control here, and I feel like just not enough people in America are taking this seriously, the media included. Actually, they're probably at the top of the list. They seem to be doing a piss poor job at informing the people of not only the insanity of Trump's comments, but the parallels that you can draw from them. And the fact that while he's an unserious person, totally absurd at times, he's absolutely serious about the threats he's making. And well, don't get it twisted.
And he's surrounded himself by people at this point who are willing to carry them out for him. I mean, all of the people who had any integrity jumped ship a long time ago.
Yes, long gone.
I don't want to get into their original integrity.
Fair enough. Yeah, we don't know how much integrity they had to begin with, but what little shred of integrity some of those individuals might have had, the ones that did seem to have at least some line that they weren't willing to cross, are long gone.
When you want to have someone who's willing to tell you, yes, black is white, then you don't have a good advisor. I mean, you're not gonna attract good people when you're insisting they all lie to you and then expect good counsel. Anyway, go on.
For sure. And then like the fact that one, the Supreme Court has granted this dude immunity. Two, they plan on firing literally everyone they possibly can in the federal government if Trump wins the election, and replacing them with stooges, basically his own brown shirts. And then three, there are a number of state governors who are willing to let Trump deputize their local law enforcement and treat them as his own private army. I would suggest that like everyone take this shit seriously, because we could all die if Trump's elected in November. So keep that in mind. But the insanity at Trump's events didn't stop over the course of the weekend, because, well, look, he can't help himself. He just says some of the most ridiculous possible stuff that you could possibly. I mean, well, here's a clip of Trump not knowing what a phone app is.
Immigrants, they have a phone app so that people can come into our country. These are smart immigrants, I guess, because most people don't have any idea what the hell a phone app is, but they do. These are very...
Yeah, and he's referring to an app that that was used prominently in the course of his administration there to help immigrants deal with some of the issues that arise from...
they laughed at him. Did you hear them laughing at him?
Yeah, they did laugh. Now, as insane as that was, it drives me crazy that this nonsense just continues to be spouted by him at his rallies in front of these people who like take him seriously, and the media they're just like, oh, Trump just held another rally, but they don't actually cover the ridiculous content of the things that he actually says. It drives me crazy. But here is Trump, who, while brain dead, is accusing others of being mentally handicapped in some form or fashion.
Joe Biden became mentally impaired
Kamala was born that way. Okay? She was born that way.
Yeah, that is Trump engaging in some of the most absurdly racist shit. It's really difficult to rank Trump's racist comments over the years, but in terms of the 2024 campaign, that's pretty bad. I mean, saying that, well, the implication being there that because Joe Biden is white, that he's experiencing mental decline, but because Kamala Harris is black, that she's somehow been she was born mentally disabled. And this is coming from the person,
despite all the evidence that she is much smarter than him and just kicked his ass and embarrassed him in a debate.
Yeah, if you take Trump's implication at his word, then he's lost to two mentally handicapped people.
I mean, he's no longer campaigning. He's just complaining. I mean, that's just his thing, right?
Well, yeah, his campaigns are a mix of him whining and
trash talking, like in a way that's not even clever or like.
Yeah, it's like white supremacist Def Comedy Jam up there. Like the jokes, quote unquote, that he's making are quite terrible. But I mean, that's also Trump calling someone else mentally disabled or whatnot, while also not knowing what a phone app is, and also, well, clearly not knowing anything about hurricane season, as you will see in this particular clip here.
Throughout Georgia, as well as North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Virginia, Alabama, and Tennessee. That's our big one. And the devastation wrought by this storm is incredible. It's so extensive. Nobody thought this would be happening, especially now it's so late in the season for the hurricanes.
No, it's not. And also everyone was warning that this was going to have devastating effects when it made landfall.
Yeah, we do that days in advance. Also, it's peak hurricane season. I think it's pretty clear. It's like September, end of September, early October. This is when hurricanes are at the most severe. And literally anyone who just knows the bare minimum about hurricanes understands that.
Anyone who's looked at cruises ever and was like, why is it so cheap at this time of year? Oh.
Yeah, because you could potentially die. Or if you've been
paying attention and remember when all the other serious hurricanes have been throughout the course of your life, and his life has been considerably longer than mine. So there's like less of an excuse for him to have so little self-awareness. But sorry, not self-awareness, awareness of your surroundings as well.
I mean, as someone who was president for 4 years and dealt with multiple natural disasters
remember
he tossed
all the hurricanes in September. Every year, something cut me off now. It's getting really bad.
Whoa, say you remember hurricanes every September. So yes, by dealing with natural disasters, I mean tossing paper towels at them and doing nothing else over the course of his administration. Like, how is the media not holding him accountable for learning absolutely nothing after 4 years on the job and then 4 more years campaigning for president?
And then telling his underlings, no, you have to tell them that we should have more paper towels, right? You're just going Everyone keep lying and pretending that this is some great idea.
But yeah, just keep in mind, we just saw a clip of him referring to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as mentally handicapped. And then there he is immediately proving that he knows absolutely nothing and his brain is jello. And just, again, man, I don't know. Like, I don't know at what point this country turned into like this hellscape where a presidential candidate could say, oh, this incredibly stupid or racist or violent shit and then face no consequences. I don't know what happened. Like, is this the George Bushification of the Conservative Party? Is that what happened? Because I was like, yeah, after 8 years of that, we'll never see anyone this dumb or stupid or useless again. Wrong.
We'll never see someone who made George Bush seem innocent, just a sweet, innocent war criminal.
Well, beyond the war criminality, just like the idiocy, like if you thought the Bush presidency was like idiocracy. This is idiocracy on
I'm
steroids.
saying I never thought someone was going to come around to
And make Bush seem quaint. Yeah, this is steroids level stupidity. I don't understand. It almost has me pulling my hair out. I mean, I just need them to do better. But we also had Trump just straight up lying about President Biden's disaster response. Just straight up lies, as you see.
Ideally, with the governor, that governor needs to. He's been trying to get them, and I'm sure they're going to come through. But he's been calling the president, hasn't been able to get him. But
I just spoke. The president just called me yesterday afternoon. I missed him and called him right back. And he just said, "Hey, what do you need?" And I told him, we got what we need. We'll work through the federal process. He offered that if there's other things we need, just to call him directly, which I appreciate that. But
yeah, it's absolutely wild that Trump is just willing to outright. Oh, wait, that's what he does regularly, every single day, every single time nearly that he opens his mouth. No, just trying to lie.
like, yeah, well, super conservative Governor Brian Kemp is obviously a liberal shill. And he's.
Well, yeah, he's like trying to blame Biden for some seeming lack of disaster response. Governor Kemp is like, actually, no, I was talking to Biden every day here. He's been on board. Now, a lot of people. So I live in Tennessee currently, and of all the governors who have been affected by the hurricane, they issued a state of emergency at least a couple of days before landfall at the earliest. My state was the only one to request aid from the federal government after the fucking storm created a disaster, and people were trying to blame President Biden for that. I'm like, you know what? Biden can't actually really do anything until the governor requests help from the federal government. So, and the right-wing nut jobs are out here trying to blame Biden for lack of response here in Tennessee. No, it's actually my state's idiot moron of a governor, his fault for not watching the fucking news. Like, everyone knew. You could just like look at the map. It's got like the hurricane path, and it's like all the way from Florida through Georgia and Tennessee and North Carolina, and you could see it. And like the fact that this fucking moron waited till like half the state was in dire straits and to ask for federal assistance, it's just, I mean, and look, that's what you have to look forward to if you vote for a Republican. If there's any sort of incident, God forbid, some kind of disaster, they're going to leave you to die. I'm just telling you that for sure, for fact. And like, you can look at Project 2025, like one of the plans.
Aren't they getting rid of FEMA?
They're treating it like they said what leftists wanted to do to the police in 2020. They're going to defund it. And, again, these climate disasters are only getting worse and worse and then more and more frequent. So, yeah, if you want to live, vote for Kamala Harris. I guess that's really your only option. And like these people who have their like single issue or whatever, for whatever reason, they don't feel as though they can vote for Kamala Harris. I'm like, hey, man, there's all this other important stuff in the world that will literally affect you if you choose to not vote in the election in November. And if Trump wins, it's going to be deleterious to you, and not only you, everyone that you know, and possibly all the entire United States. So, get your shit together. But speaking of like the ideal response to a natural disaster like a hurricane, here we have Jesse Waters from Fox News giving Kamala Harris advice on how she should handle the impact from Hurricane Helene.
What I recommend her doing is maybe you get a little paper towel like this, like he did in Puerto Rico. Mm-hmm. That's what the people want.
He means his viewers, though, not he wants that. He's the people.
Yeah, let's not actually throw the fucking paper towel at hurricane victims. Like,
throw them at Jesse Waters. If you see Jesse Waters, offer him some paper towels in a non-violent way.
I mean, that's an option, but yeah, look, numerous people have died from this fucking hurricane. It has been an under disaster. I think it's something like close to 120 million, or rather 120 billion with a B dollars in damage so far, and who knows what the actual total number will be over the course of the next couple of weeks as we get relief and aid in and clean up after this horrific disaster. And the idea that, like, following Trump's lead from when he was president in 2017, where he didn't do anything for Puerto Rico but go down there and throw that roll of paper towels at the people, it's fucking disgusting. Like, it's absolutely asinine. Like, first, not only are they lying about
it's like let them eat cake. Sorry.
Yeah, let them eat paper towels. Let them eat Brawny or something. I don't know, Downey.
It's kind of like if after the French Revolution, like Marie Antoinette's still alive, friends in exile are making jokes to like poor people about, they're making like the same joke, and they're like, what?
It's off the rails. No, but the idea that Jesse Waters would even suggest that when we know that people are suffering in the way that they are is absurd. And that's on top of the fact that they're just outright lying for political gain about the job that Biden is doing, even though he had been preparing the second we knew this was going to be some kind of horrific event, given the nature and strength of the storm and the trajectory and the likelihood that it would just result in massive damage. I just, like, these people, man, we got to get them the fuck out of here. Cut off your Fox Newses. If you watch that, I mean, I guess if you're listening to this podcast, there's absolutely no way that you're listening to Fox News or watching Fox News for that matter. But definitely, if you live in a red state, just look at what kind of absurd shit is going on here. And then, like, Republicans, again, in the middle of a disaster, just voted to shut down the government just a couple of weeks ago, which really would have handicapped any kind of federal response in getting aid to these people and saving lives.
Then they would just be like, well, our hands are tied. The Democrats wouldn't allow our innocuous bill about not letting women vote if their passport doesn't match their birth certificate. Huh?
Yeah, something like that. But yeah,
something like that. I was conflating it with another thing.
That's okay. There's a million insane issues that Republicans are making a priority over actually doing anything good for the American people. It's totally fine.
I just want to mention, you said, if you're in a red state, I don't want our blue state friends to forget. You also need to vote, and don't think like it's a sure thing in your state for president. It might be, but like, I live in what it's supposed to be a pretty blue district, and we currently have a Republican congressman. I don't know if people just got too complacent last time, or.
Yeah, that's what happened. Well, part of it is that also the redistricting probably didn't help you guys either, and then a bit of complacency. But again, so if you do live in a blue state, obviously having a presidential election is probably going to help boost turnout in that regard. But again, if we had taken 2022 seriously in just a handful of states, largely Florida and New York, we could have had control of the House. But I mean, I guess lesson learned. So yeah, so treat the 2024 election.
I was taking it serious.
Not you.
But I can still only vote the once.
I'm talking about just generally the royal, we weren't taking it seriously. But lesson learned. So if you do happen to live in a blue state, don't treat that as some kind of excuse not to turn out and vote, because there are other elections down ballot that matter. Your governor's races, Senate races, perhaps. Also, the House of Representatives is in play, so make sure you turn out and vote for that. Judges,
yeah, and you have a state Senate. I got a DA race right now. I got lots of stuff. Yeah,
your state legislatures, they matter a lot. They're a huge deal. And considering what Republicans are possibly planning for the election in terms of cheating, your state legislature might be the difference between Kamala Harris winning the presidency or Republicans cheating and handing it to Trump. But also, if you live in a swing state, obviously, when it comes to president, your vote is super important because you were literally the only thing saving us from hell, destruction, and, well, a real life version of the Purge. So absolutely turn out to vote in that regard. And obviously,
And remember, since you're in a swing state, it's going to fall. Your state will fall faster.
right. They're going to. Yeah, the odds are the more of you in swing states, if you turn out to vote and help Kamala Harris win by a landslide in your state, the less likely it is for them, the Republican Party, to effectively cheat and steal your vote. And if you're a blue dot in a red state,
or purge you, or let you get blown away, or flooded.
Yes, there are any number of ways in which letting Republicans take control of the federal government.
From a disease for which we have a vaccine available.
Yep.
Any number of
any
things.
number of ways in which, if Republicans take control of the federal government or your state, that you could die miserably horrible death.
Not provide health care that is available.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
Talking about abortion care.
Yes, your vote is important there. And if you live in a red state and you're a blue dot, don't think your vote isn't important there, because a number of you could largely be the reason why, even though Trump might win your state, Republicans might lose the House or the Senate. So it's absolutely vital to turn out to vote in November and make things happen, because we need every single vote.
Some of you have some pretty sick ballot initiatives too.
Yeah, Florida, we're looking at you. Of course, with the abortion rights and legalization of marijuana on the ballot. Or I don't know why.
So while you're there voting voting with your stoniness and for your free joints, throw a vote in there for Kamala.
I don't think you get free weed. It just becomes legal. But also, Arizona, here's looking at you guys. You have abortion access on the ballot as well.
New York was giving out joints in exchange for COVID vaccines a few years ago.
Yeah, that was probably an effective method of getting people to show up and get vaccinated. Yeah, instead of having to take like some Advil afterwards because your arm is sore, you just fire up a blunt.
It was a joint.
Or joint. I mean, that, you got to be like
I didn't get them. I had already been vaccinated.
I don't know what type of community you're typically associating with, but the individuals I typically associate with who engage in the smoking of cannabis generally roll blunts. Yes.
Okay. Well, if they were handed a free joint for getting a vaccine, are you telling me they're going to unroll it and roll it into a blunt?
Oh, no,
they've never met a pothead who is that.
No, they're absolutely going to smoke it. But I was just saying that typically the preference there in order would be like blunt at the top of the list, and then somewhere down lower would be joint. But in terms of the landscape and what it looks like for Republicans winning the 2024 election, I'm sure a lot of you out there are checking out the polls. And one of the things you're going to see regularly here is polling averages. And I'm going to advise you to stay away from anyone who's using polling averages. And here's the reason why. So recently, according to some
bunch of really bad polls, and they still average into the number.
Yes. So that's
but can you put it in a song?
I don't know if there's not as clear an obviously fitting song for the polling averages as there were for hurricanes in September. Shout out to Earth, Wind, and Fire. Y'all crushed it with that. So according to some leaked documents, it was revealed that Rasmussen polls, the notoriously super right-leaning polls, despite what every other legitimate poll tends to say, there were documents revealed that they basically are coordinating with the Trump campaign and are working in tandem, which is likely some sort of campaign finance violation. I'm sure the FEC should probably look into that, regardless of whether they will or not. I mean, they're
taking notes right now. They're like, "Oh shit, he's right."
But beyond that just shows that Rasmussen, and this is one of the more prominent right-wing polls, there were just an arm of the Trump campaign. And the reason why they're working with the Trump campaign and the reason why some of their numbers are so skewed is you'll likely see, like, maybe Pennsylvania, perhaps most polls will have Kamala Harris up by 1, 2, 3, 4 points, and Rasmussen will have Trump up by 3. One of the reasons why they do this is because one of the methods that have become popular in terms of using polling data to quote unquote predict elections is aggregating the data inside of polling averages. So you take a number of polls, you average them together more or less, and then you take that number, and that's supposed to eliminate some of the noise that comes with the issues arising from individual polls, right? Well, the way polls are typically used by media now is not to inform campaigns on how to effectively campaign better, but to influence public opinion. So if you have a poll or a set of polls showing Trump losing by 4 points, it's extraordinarily debilitating for that campaign's ability to convince people to donate to them. It depresses turnout in the election. If it looks like it's certain defeat, then a number of supporters typically won't show up at the polls. So one of the ways to counteract that is to introduce these. They're cooked, like they cook up these polls that show more right-wing support than actually exists. They introduce these to the pollsters who do the aggregation, and voila, you've magically somehow shifted what would have been a Harris advantage +4 per se to now a Harris advantage +1, because you've introduced polls like Rasmussen per se and a number of other right-wing funded polls that are basically intended to affect public perception. So what I would say largely is
that's just what I said in a much more articulate way.
I do okay sometimes. So what I would say is, if you're looking at the polls, just to get an idea of where things are and where to send, donate your money to these races, down ballot, or where you think the campaign should be spending its money. Stay away from anyone using polling averages, and absolutely stay away from anyone that's specifically including Rasmussen polls in their polling averages, because as we just explained to you, their polls are cooked, and it's basically right-wing propaganda coming straight from the Trump campaign. And that especially includes Nate Silver, formerly of 538, who got fired by his own company. Fuck that guy. And that concludes this episode of Pardon the Insurrection.